Good evening, everybody. We are reconvening into open session. We had an open session convened at 5 p.m. And so we will move right into the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Will someone please read the mission statement? Lynn?
We educate all students to be college, career, and community ready, inspired to succeed in our diverse world.
Thank you. So I will read the land acknowledgement. We, the members of the Green Bay Area Public School District, recognize and honor the original inhabitants of Northeast Wisconsin. Our district works and learns upon the ancestral homelands of the Menominee and Ho-Chunk nations and the current homeland of Oneida Nation. We acknowledge the 12 diverse, vibrant Wisconsin First Nations who have persevered here since before recorded time and continue to be an integral part of our community. We uphold our responsibility to repair relationships, initiate partnerships, and stand with all First Nation communities. We'll move to open forum, and I have two individuals that request to speak this evening. Ms. Jackson. Reminder that you have 5 minutes, right? No, yeah. It's on now.
Okay, I see it. Thanks. My name is Miss Jackson. I'm a mother, I'm a community member, and I'm also a community activist. I wanted to address some concerns that we have as parents, community members, and also as activists. Our biggest concern is that our board is all white, and that is the problem. You had a Black man that was on this board and you voted him off. That's not just disappointing. That decision sent a clear message. Let's be honest. This board is not the voice of our brown community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. The next person that would like to speak this evening is Denise Gomer Hutchinson. Remember to state your name, address.
There we go. Denise Gomer Hutchison, 3184 Hermans Road, New Franken, Wisconsin. I'm here for two reasons tonight, and that is to acknowledge the Green Bay Area Public School District and Board, and to thank you for an amazing opportunity that just happened. On last week, Wednesday and Thursday, the Wisconsin Public Education Network was able to host their annual Summer Summit, the 11th annual Summer Summit, at the Green Bay Public School District at Preble High School. It was an amazing opportunity with representatives from all over the state able to be there and to participate all the way from Superior down to Racine and areas in between. We had a number of legislators from across the state as well, and activists and community leaders, including the first speaker who also was there, to learn the importance of being an activist and involved, but also an advocate for our high quality public schools. And Green Bay really did an amazing, public school did an amazing job of showing themselves to the community and to the state and to the legislature, and also shared why it's so important that we fund our public schools and we fund them adequately and with great speed and consideration. And so I just want to thank the amazing team, some of them represented over here, that were a big support to us. Lori Blakesley, President Lyerly, thank you for being there, and other members of the board, thank you. And for those of you who weren't able to be there, it was quite the opportunity. And Superintendent Byer kicked off the event for us on the night before, and also the Community Schools Organization was able to showcase what's happening with our community schools, with our most vulnerable communities, and what do we have to do to make sure they get the great education that they deserve. And I have to tell you, I've been getting messages from across the state about what a great example the Green Bay Area Public School District is. So thank you so much for the opportunity that you provided us.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to proceed to section 4, updates, legislative update. Jeanette?
Okay, so as everyone knows, the big thing that happened was our budget. And our budget passed with no new real money going to the schools. On the legislative report that we've been using, there are no significant changes to most of the bills, but there were some new things that were introduced. And because I'm very new at this, I don't have a whole lot of information about support and opposition, but I'll give you what I understand. So Assembly Bill 354 and Senate Bill 341 were introduced relating to the timing of equalization aid payments to school districts. And what this bill in both chambers wants to do is change the distribution to increase in September, decrease in June, but it's the same amount of money. They're just changing the way it's distributed. So by the 29-30 school year, the equalization aid will be paid in 4 equal installments. It appears to have support, bipartisan support. Right now, it is in the Assembly State of Affairs Committee and in the Senate Education Committee. And then we have Assembly Bill 343 and Senate Bill 350 related to school mental health and pupil wellness aid and making an appropriation. It was introduced in the Senate on June 27th and in the Assembly on July 8th. Both chambers referred it to their education committee, and this bill changes the types of expenditures that are eligible for reimbursement under the state categorical aid program related to pupil mental health. I'm not sure support and opposition. It looked like it was a pretty partisan bill, more Dems than Republicans, but I don't know everybody's name now. And but that's what it looked like. I will have more information as I gather it over time, maybe next session though, next meeting though. I don't know if they'll have a session before our next meeting. So there may not be any change anyway. Assembly Bill 339 and Senate Bill 347 also were introduced in the Senate on June 27th, referred to their Education Committee, and in the Assembly on July 8th, referred to the Committee on Mental Health and Substance Abuse Prevention. It is a Democratic-led bill relating to aid for comprehensive school mental health services and making an appropriation. The bill replaces the current grant program with new categorical aid for comprehensive school mental health services to school districts and independent charter schools. And that's it.
Does any board member have questions for Jeanette? All right. Okay, we're going to continue on to section 5, discussion. So board members, you all received an email that outlined a couple of conversations that occurred since the working session. And it outlines four options that we're going to discuss tonight, and looking for your input and to direct activities between now and next month. So we have been talking about two options, and only two options to date, for only one reason, right? That's pre-existing relationships. The last search was conducted by BWP and Associates, and since Dr. Tiller did not complete the contract period, they offer a no-cost engagement except for travel and expenses to do a redo of that search. And then we have an existing relationship with Wisconsin Association of School Boards, and they provide an ancillary service to support districts through a superintendent search as well. So we have four options that were put to you in the email. One, unsupported, no vendor, just doing this internal with and board members. Two is to take BWP and Associates up on their contract guarantee, and a very initial rough grain estimate of the travel expenses. Again, these can be controlled. I put out there about $5,000 for those expenses and helping us with community engagement or whatever, but that actual number is not a fact yet because they haven't submitted any kind of proposal, and that was based on the conversation. Wisconsin Associated School Boards had a conversation with them, and their estimates for services came in between $21,000 and about $26,000. It's not a redo search, so they have a different pricing schedule. Between the two, there are very different engagement types. BWP being exclusively a recruiting organization, holds proprietary the actual application packet and all of the supplemental sources or resources until such time as they get selected to be on a interview panel. And last time that interview panel was 7. And that's when we received a bound copy of all of the application materials. WASB is very different in that they are looking to have relationships with school boards, and this is a service that they provide. They give us access to all of the application materials the day after the application window closes, right? And so we have the ability to be very hands-on with those applications out there. The difference between the low end and the high end of that estimate is the low end, they are calling on the board to basically do all of the applicant screening, all of the panel selection, all of the reference checks at that point. So really they advertise and aggregate and provide the data access to the applications, but they are looking for, or they support a board in that we are the screeners, the decision makers, the interviewees, they provide access to banks of questions. They help us define the interviews. So they are truly that partner, that consultant, but they are not leading the effort out there. So until such times as we closer, they neither have submitted a qualified proposal that they would stand by. Both of these organizations would say, based on a planning meeting with the board, we would come to kind of a final determination of costs, where we would outline the scope of the services that we were requesting. There's the fourth option, and that is, even though we have pre-existing relationships with both of these organizations, they do not suffice, and that we would like to make sure that we are not missing opportunities to engage a organization that is better suited cost-wise and scope of services-wise. And therefore, you can suggest that we go to RFP And we would do that as quickly as possible to get alternatives for us to review. So having said that, and recognizing that, this is not a lot of information, I'm just going to open the table for discussion. And if, Alex, if we want to start on this, right, and if you want to just say, I prefer option 4, option 3, I just want to kind of take everyone's temperature first time around, and then we can have a discussion if we need to refine our position. But it may be that we all are thinking the same thing.
Sure. To me, without a doubt, I think it's important that we consider using an RFP. We know a little bit about 2 options, but we don't know what else is out there right now. Who else might be interested in conducting this, what the cost would be, and ultimately, um, it never hurts to be aware of more options. You never know. We won't know what we can't utilize if we don't know. So I'm definitely in favor of that. Um, part one, as far as weighing whether there's a certain cost effective aspect versus the right engagement model. I don't want one or the other. I want both. I want to find something that does what we want it to do. If we do choose to use any kind of, additional vendor, that they operate in a way that we find beneficial. And obviously, um, I'm not opposed to using funds towards this, but I want to obviously be as cost effective as we can.
Thank you, Jeanette.
I'm also leaning towards 4, a request for proposals, because as Alex said, we don't even know what we don't know. And now, this is the first time I've ever done this. So those of you who have done it may know a little bit more about the cost or the services that are out there. I really don't want to go back to a company that didn't seem to meet our needs in the first place, even if they're the cheapest. Cheapest isn't always the best. And I also agree that we can't just use cost as our way of doing this. We have to get the best that we can for the lowest, of course, but the lowest isn't always the best either. So I would say 4.
I would be interested to know just how long option 4 to go to RFP would extend the timeline. Specifically, understanding that this process is going to be really labor intensive, which I know we're all on board for. However, I worry about time crunch potentially on the elements that need to happen by district staff. Understanding that either legal, HR, some of those other elements, I would worry that that would potentially put undue stress into those areas. Otherwise, I could very easily lean more to option 3 to go the WASB route, just because it's been communicated on a number of fronts that this time around needs to feel more local and in touch with what we offer here in Green Bay. So I would feel more comfortable going with a statewide and state level organization doing that. But like I said, I'd like to know a bit more, I think, about just how far that would extend our timeline if we did go to RFP.
Lynn, before you go, so the schedule that we have in front of us has a time period built in for vendor selection. So it does not impact the timeline. So the last time we did this, and Laura, you can correct me, we started about the same time in July, ran an RFP process that ended up in selection in September, and then we executed the rest of the search. So I don't think that should be a consideration against RFP.
Thank you for that, James, because that's the question I was going to ask. This is very difficult for me for a couple of reasons. One is that I've never done it before either. And not to pretend that just because I'm elected to this position, I suddenly know how to do these things. That would be silly. I want to know, I would like to know how the RFP process worked for you last time. And, you know, whether those of you who've been through this would recommend that. On the other hand, I have some biases. First of all, I heard about what BWP would offer. And I thought, gosh, for $5,000, and they owe us something, let's go that way. But then I had the opportunity to sit in on the call with WASB and learn what they would offer. And I felt so reassured that we would be able to structure this the way it works for us, and the fact that they would make available to us immediately all the files of all the applicants, which seems to be important to people who've been through this before. And so there's a huge difference between $5,000 and $26,000. And I don't know how much something like this ought to cost. So I'm sorry, I have only questions, and I'm just being honest with you. I don't have a preference.
I'm just gonna keep going around the table and I'll go last. Oh, Andrew.
I think it's important because mainly for the reason that we don't know, even though we had a RFP recently, we don't know the entirety of who's out there. And I think there's a good chance that we might end up going the WASB route, but what if there's someone new that would be aligned with us that's in that recruitment space that we would perhaps never find out about because we didn't do an RFP. That being said, I think it can be a very short RFP. People know where to look for these things in the internet age. It could probably be a posting for a week. I also don't think that doing this means that we have to bring people in and have a 3-hour special board meeting for sales pitches. I think we can bring someone in if we have more questions, or we could phone interview them or something. But I think a very short RFP process would help confirm whatever we're doing in the end, which may be WASB because they're the only one that I know of who would let us have access to all the materials. And other firms, to some extent or another, all the other firms I've worked with have held some things close using different excuses. Well, people might not apply because they're afraid the resume would be public, which it isn't in Wisconsin at the early stage. Although there's a perception too, people might feel safer applying to a consultant, but I think a short RFP would help us feel better about and clarify our choice, whatever that might be.
Laura.
I'm not going to help this by what I'm about to say, but I do have very strong opinions about this. So, first of all, number one, the first unsupported one, I don't think that's viable. I don't think staff should be a part of hiring their own boss. And I don't know that they would want to, so I don't think that's good. Number two, going back to a company that, I was less than happy with. I don't really have any interest in that. These companies, I think our search last time was over $40,000. I think that number, yeah, and it's not going to be cheaper this time. And all of these companies are more or less the same, as far as I can remember. They all offer the same thing. I've been through this twice now, and I am underwhelmed by what is offered. Oftentimes they'll do a presentation. That's fine. That's good to have, and make some promises. And then the people that present to us, we never see them again. Sometimes, like they're here for the presentation. I don't like the process, and I have learned that the hard way. So with regard to WASB, I was a little surprised to see how much they were, the range. I think last time they offered something around $15,000, but their expenses have gone up too. And what Samantha said about being more local, I feel confident. I know WASB, we have a good relationship with them. We know their leadership, we know their people, they're easy to get a hold of. And they know our staff. We already have a good, solid relationship. And I feel like they would work with us on price. For instance, like what if we said, what can you do for us for $15,000? What would that look like? And then as far as, so that obviously from what I've said already, the number 4 would be, no, I have no interest in doing the RFP again. I don't think it'll make any difference. And I just don't have any interest in going down that route again, so.
Thanks, Laura. So to be clear, in the email, the range provided by WASB was a do not exceed quote, which does give the district an opportunity to shape the scope of services such that we can get from them, I think, the services that we need. But I don't, given that this is the range that they communicated based on the initial conversation, I don't hold out hopes that we can cut this in half, right? Or bring it down to where we would optimally want to see their services. Having had 2 conversations, both with BWP and B, I think as a board, regardless of whether or not it feels right, I did not walk away from those 2 conversations saying this is exactly the way we should go, and for different reasons. That I would suggest that the board at least do a RFP. I am based on the conversation with WASB, I am sure that they would respond to the RFP and would be one of the organizations that would be interested in working with us. But I can't get over the feeling that I'm not doing my due diligence in the event that there is another firm that is out there that can provide services out there. So I'm on team RFP for this engagement, just to make sure that we're doing the right thing. So several things that have said. Alex, let's do Alex, and then we'll go back to you, Laura.
And I just want to remind everybody here and elsewhere that just like, I remodel a lot of properties, and when I'm redoing something, I get 3, 4, 5 bids for something, and
Right.
I tell them what I want, what I need done. This is no different. We do an RFP. It's not us saying, hey, what do you guys have? No, we're saying, hey, we're going to put together what we want, what we need. What are you going to charge us? This is what we want, what we are asking. Either you're going to do it or you're not, or you're going to give us a price and we're going to take it or we're not. So we get to choose the menu that we want to put out and go from there. So I just want to remind people of that. And so we are not beholden to anyone else. They're beholden to us at the end of the day. So, if we decide to go an RFP route, whether it's WASB and whoever else we may or may not get, ultimately we can decide what it is we're going to get from them, whether we choose them or not. And, and that also might, in the case that WASB is, obviously there's some interest there already. Then they might be able to clarify, not only what they can or can't do or how they might do it better, something they maybe haven't communicated, but also it may adjust their price a little bit because they might then know specifically, hey, they don't maybe want or need this, but this is more so what we're going to do for them. And maybe it changes the number and things like that. So.
Laura.
I see us going down a route that we kind of said we wouldn't maybe go down again. And I just want to, I would say that respectfully, but I don't have that much confidence in the process we went through the last two times, and I do not want to repeat it. And it didn't serve us well, and I just want to, I don't know, I guess I just want to put that on the record. So.
Appreciate that. Lynn?
Not to put anyone on the spot, but I'm very interested in what my colleagues have to say because I have to learn from you in this case. And I would like to know if somebody can explain to me what, more specifically, what are the issues? What's the problem with doing an RFP as opposed to what are the benefits of doing an RFP? I hear from Andrew and James, I think that there are benefits. And Laura, I don't want to put you on the spot, but can you tell us what are the pitfalls?
These companies, like I said before, are all very similar to each other. They use a lot of the same language. They charge more or less the same. They are staffed a lot by school administrators who have retired, and it's a business. So I don't want to get really negative. I mean, they're a business and they sell a product. But I would like, I guess I had always thought that this time around we'd do something substantially different and with the hopes of a better result. And I will obviously bow to whatever decision, if I'm outvoted, that's fine. And we'll do an RFP and we can go that route again. And maybe, as Alex said, we can have a little bit more control over the process. That could happen. So, but I guess I'm not, I don't have a lot of confidence in that, so.
So Lynn, I don't think that the RFP process is the problem, right? I do agree with Laura that the scope of services that these recruitment firms provide are very similar, right? You go out to any staffing agency or recruitment agency, they all do the same thing. So it all comes down to what you value, right? I went into last RFP cycle and I valued network, right? I wanted someone that's, for many reasons, and that's what I valued, right? Um, Having gone through that process, I value something else this time, right? And I value hands-on access, transparency. So the engagement model is what I value this time. So you can get what you want out of an RFP process. When I look at this particular process, we have board members who are then put in the position to trust us if we just go with WASB instead of seeing and examining who responds and what services that they provide. But I'll side with Laura in the fact that most of the models are the same, and the pricing structure is the same, and we have to go in understanding what we value. And if we value control, and no one gets screened out until the Board of Education says they get screened out, we will end up probably with fewer finalists in the RFP, right? We might only end up with one finalist in the RFP, but we'll be able to look into a camera and say, we did our due diligence, we put out the RFP, and based on what we're looking for, here's the direction we're going. So I don't fear the RFP process. I am much more sensitive this time to the product that's being sold to it, and that's helped me shape a different approach to RFPs. Laura?
Just a little addendum to what I said. I mean, I don't know about the rest of the board, but I have been hearing pretty consistently from people in the community, staff members, that they're looking for somebody local, somebody who's already invested in our community. And the whole, we got to throw out a wide net across the country and all that. A lot of people don't actually think that. They think like homegrown talent and people that are already here among us, or at least live in the communities around us, or at least live in Wisconsin, maybe. would be better suited to what our needs are in this district in the coming years. So I want to just honor that, like that feedback is real. And I've heard that quite a bit from people in the community in a variety of ways. So I just wanted to add that.
Lynn and Andrew.
What would the cost be to us to conduct an RFP?
No, that's, we put it together. We work through our district resources. We have ways to publish that, get the feedback and responses and processes. So we're not paying an external consultant anything to do the RFP process. Andrew.
Yeah, I don't think it's very likely that an RFP would get us some, an out-of-state consulting firm, but I can't say that I know for sure that there isn't someone with more of a connection to us that I've never heard of yet. I know who applied before. I don't plan to, I don't see any reason that I would be voting for anyone who I voted against before. Some of the ones I voted for in the past, I probably wouldn't vote for them either. So I think there's, yeah, I don't see the harm in it. I think it clarifies our suggestion and what if there is something better than WASB that we would never know existed until this. But I think it's a short RFP and absolutely not a guarantee of 5 half-hour sales pitches at the board. I think we read them and the board might be ready to take a vote just from reading them. An open vote, of course, after reading it.
Laura.
So, okay, but I'm going to disagree with that if we're going to do an RFP, come and do the sales pitch then. Let us see them, let us meet them, let us see them, you know, in front of us so that we can see the full scope. I just would disagree with you on that. Like if we're going to do an RFP, let's do it all the way. So that's my thoughts on that.
Okay. Vicky.
The team was able to track down the expenses for the last 2 searches. The one in 2020 was $33,880. And the one in 2022 was $38,960.
Thank you. Other comments, questions? Laura?
I'm sorry to keep at this. Thank you for providing those numbers. I had forgotten, those are above and beyond the fees, right? Those are just the expenses?
No.
Or is that the full amount?
That's everything.
Everything, okay. Then I will.
Andrew.
Yeah, I wouldn't automatically say either that we should guarantee upfront that nobody would come here, but I don't think we should. I think that this would probably be clear from reading them, especially if many board members are not interested in a canned slate opportunity, which many of the firms will only do that. And then there would be no need to proceed to those. But again, I don't know if there's someone who would be good for us that's different than the way that these other firms do business that I've never heard of before, because I don't know. I'll know well enough if we do an RFP, then it's on them if they miss the chance. But I don't know if there's something different.
Yeah, I would agree that an RFP is a formalized process, and that, you know, typically you get responses and you only offer an opportunity to come and speak for finalists. But typically you don't just have one finalist, right? You want it to be a competitive process to end. So, but I think we had 3 or 4 last time, and I could imagine 2 coming and speaking to the board as a finalist meeting. All right, so I think that looking in, Alex, you have.
I was just going to say that just maybe one last reminder too, that it costs us nothing, no money, no time to do an RFP. And with that being said, the conclusion of it, still, we have to decide, every one of us, how we feel about not spending any money, not contracting it out versus the alternative. You know, regardless of what happens with the RFP, whether we get nothing back that we like, or WASB in some way, shape, or form is going to be part of the RFP, whether we do an RFP or not. You know, so we already know that no matter what we go with, if we decide, by the way, if we decide to contract out something, that it's going to cost money, and we still have to factor that into our overall determination about ultimately what we're going to do, keeping in mind what constituents have said, which I think we all know at this point very well in regards to how we search and also cost. I myself have not made up my mind. Then this is, I guess, what I want to stress. I still want, in my opinion, everybody to continue to be open-minded about what we spend and what we go with and how we approach this process, though, because I still don't think any of us should have had made up our mind yet with, and that's why I think the RFP is important. There's still more information to be gained for all of us to make up our mind about how we ultimately want to go about this process.
Jeanette.
So, number one choice, we would manage the entire process internally without external facilitation. I'm not really in favor in that, but we need to look at everything. Do we have numbers of how much it would cost in labor? Because this is going to be labor intensive. We're going to have staff spending hours, and time is money. How much would that cost the staff?
So there are multiple um, characteristics of an internal search, and one of them is time and labor, and the other one is separation of duties and legal concerns that we would have to clarify because, again, it's and competencies, right? We have an HR team and a talent acquisition team that's tuned to hire teachers and may or may not have the experience conducting executive search out there. So very different types of searches, but there are also costs associated with it that aren't time and labor, right? Some of these consultants they already have affiliations, so they handle the postings and the advertising through pre-existing channels that we would probably pay a premium because we're only gonna have one posting out there. So there are costs that aren't just internal labor, right? So nothing's free. It's just, to Alex's point, it's on a continuum, and I'm sure it's at the low end of the continuum when it comes to cost.
Yet I think it's important to at least have a ballpark figure of what that would be. So we could say, okay, I'm not in favor of using staff. As you said, they're hiring teachers. Should they be hiring their boss? There's a lot of reasons why I'm not in favor of that, but I think we need to say, and also the cost that doesn't cost actual dollars, but the cost of time that's taking them, the opportunity costs that are taking them away from the jobs of hiring teachers and doing their jobs.
So I agree. But when you're looking at number one, I think the expectation going into that is we would be shouldering the primary responsibility for a number of reasons. We, the board, right? And I don't want anyone to underestimate the amount of time that is. And it comes in spikes. So when the application window closes, the amount of work is going to be large. And if we take it on, we will be doing ourselves a disservice if we cannot execute those activities and tasks with expertise in the time frame that we need to, because we're in competition with all of the other districts for the same talent, right? So it's not something that we can get to, it's something that has to be done right now. So that's some of the value that an external organization brings. They're tuned and they have processes so that they can work efficiently when they need to work efficiently at scale. So,
And that's a very important thing for not just us at the table to know, which is, I totally agree with you. But we need to let constituents know, because as Alex said, there's people who are in the community who have said, well, just look for that person yourself. Why are you spending even $5,000? You should just be looking for that, because it's not easy to find somebody in this position. So thank you for that information.
All right. Other comments? So what I'd like to do is just, because this is not an action item on the board, but I do want some direction and just to kind of give some feedback. All of the board members that are in favor of us executing an RFP and working with internal resources to create that, publish it, get the feedback, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 4, regardless. Okay, so that's what I'll start working with the district to do, to put that together, and we'll socialize it and make sure that everyone is comfortable with the nature of the RFP, questions that we're asking a recipient or respondent to answer, okay? All right, thank you. So that with that, we can move on to the consent agenda approval. Will someone please read the motion?
I move that the consent agenda items as presented be approved.
Second,
Discussion? Kenzie?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
All right, thank you. We'll move to section 8, action items. 8A, revised Southwest High School logo approval. Will someone please read the motion?
I move that the revised Southwest High School logo as presented be approved.
second.
Before we take a vote, we have a couple of visitors at the table. Mike, Lori. Yeah, lead us through these changes.
Sure. So good evening. Well, kind of exciting. Last week we shared with you the new Star Elementary logo. Our elementary logos don't go through a board approval process. However, our high school logos do. And so that's why we're before you today. And so I'm going to turn it over to Mike who came to me and brought forward some concerns with the existing logo and rationale for why I'd like to make some changes.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, new board members. I appreciate the time here. I was fancying myself a lifelong learner. One thing that they do in admin grad school is how to pick out logos and talk about colors. And so Lori has taught me a lot about logos and colors, so I greatly appreciate that. As you look around Southwest, if you happen out there, you will see that there is a variety of logos. All right, different shades of blue, different shades of silver, the Trojan inverted colors, shields, no shields, boxes, no boxes, whatnot. So really coming in the last couple of years, we're trying to set our pathway for continuous improvement, really looking at who we are as a school, okay? And so in thinking about our logo and the importance of that, this is the goal that we crafted here. So just wanting to have that recognizable and consistently used trademarked logo. It's one of the conversations that Lori and I engaged in over the last couple of years is just that consistency around the trademark. And currently the logo in the bottom left corner of the slide there is our trademark logo and it has that box there. And most importantly, we want to keep in mind the traditions, the history, and the alumni of Southwest High School because that's a big part of who we are, is that history. So we did engage several stakeholders in the process. So first and foremost, the staff that brought forward the concerns, members of our building leadership team and the administration, including Chris, our new athletic and activities director. We did engage students, some members of our innovative student leadership team. That's a newer group that we have going at Southwest. Lori, of course, Cindy Olson being involved there. And the most fun part of it is we went all the way back to 1965 and engaged the original students at Southwest High School. And this is an original kind of time capsule from that time and really looking what was the intent at that time for the school colors and whatnot. And I recently learned from Mr. Jay Kring, social studies teacher, that the reason why we are the Southwest Trojans, and he actually met the person who won the contest for naming the mascot. We are named the Trojans because the individual that won the contest was a fan of the USC Trojans. And they had just won whatever bowl game or national champion, whatnot. Yeah, so that's why we are the Trojans. So that's just an interesting little tidbit there. So, but hey, it is what it is, right? If you look, next slide, please. So some of the concerns that came forward is when we're trying to print things, it kind of gave a purple tone to it. This really came to light in our gym work, our gymnasium work. They went to mix the colors and it was much more of a purple. So that really fast tracked the conversation. And that box can be problematic, especially when you're looking at embroidery, et cetera. It just doesn't look good. I mean, imagine my polo here with a big blue box around it. It kind of looks tough, right? And Lori did some digging and it looks like it was modified in the 2000s from the original colors. And then the Trojan was inversed in there. So that's some of the lingering pieces we have around Southwest as well. This is the proposed new logo for Southwest, and thank you to Lori and her team for this work. This kind of just met the group's needs. And so revising that to that original royal blue, which is much closer to the fabric that I have on here and easier for us to find in terms of our uniforms, in terms of products that we might purchase for giveaways, et cetera. And one part that really stood out to me was the definition of that Trojan when they inverted those, the blue and the white back. That really helped it stand out. And then, of course, easier to use with merchandise, makes it more universal kind of approach. Okay, next slide, please. We did go to the students because they are a big part of our journey this last year. So we did have a leadership group meeting planned this summer, and so I brought this towards them. You know, to them, big picture, a logo is a logo is a logo. However, they do agree that there was quite a difficulty with that trademark box, especially on various things, shirts in particular. And they did like the lighter blue, makes it easier to match the clothing, the popular clothing. That outline on there really, they said that helped to pop as well as the inversion of the blue and the white on the Trojan profile. So our students were on board with this. Next. So that's the gist of it. I'm open to questions, but we are just respectfully asking that the school board approve those modifications to our trademark logo. So hopefully Lori and her team can take the next steps to assist us with that process.
And then just to touch base on, should you approve the logo, the next steps would be we would put the logo back through the trademark process. The reason that we trademark our high school logos is it keeps people from selling our clothing, making a profit off of our logo. We've also used it when people create fake social media accounts. If it's a trademark logo, it gives us some standing in fighting back on social media accounts that are not our own organizations. And so then we would have to, once the logo's approved, we'll be updating the website, making it the correct colors, social media accounts and all of that, so.
Laura.
Thank you for mentioning that about companies trying to make a profit off our logos. Because for a while there, I was getting all kinds of companies reaching out trying to sell me things from Green Bay East online that I'm sure clearly weren't part of our district. They were using East logos in order to sell things. And I hadn't really thought about that too much. Is that just patently, no pun intended, but like against the law for them to do that? Oh, sorry, Melissa.
So just a side note, when we did trademark all the high school logos, we did it all of them together. And the Southwest logo was the hardest one to trademark because of that box.
because you have to show usage in the public and apparel, and the principal at the time had a hard time finding consistent use of that logo with that box. So this is gonna make our lives much easier in the legal department as well, once we trademark this new logo. So we have had a number of situations where various different retailers in the local area do sell merchandise particularly for our high schools. In those cases, now that we are trademarked, we will send a cease and desist letter and ask that the clothing be pulled and that it not be sold. We've been given a number of responses to that, including, well, if you just let us sell it, we'll give you a cut of the profits. But not only does it, we don't have control over it, but it hurts our students, because the majority of our apparel that is sold, there's a percentage of the proceeds that go to our students and go to our clubs and our booster clubs and our different activities. So that's why we really make sure that those are not being sold in local retailers.
Well, I like the idea of our students benefiting from the sale of any product that has logos on it. So yeah, whatever we can do to protect that, I think that's important. And I had no idea that the Southwest was having these struggles with their logo. So if this rectifies it, I'm in favor.
Sam?
What sort of next steps are involved as far as rebranding within the building itself, in terms of like athletics, the football field, murals, stuff like that, even like the giant floor mats I've seen, in schools that have the logos on it?
So I'll start just from my perspective. We have to take it as it comes, right? We can't just go out and completely purchase all new things. The biggest thing and probably the most time sensitive thing right now is center court on our basketball floor, because that is, they're at the point where they're just going to start putting down lines and putting down all the markings. And so it's pending the board approval here. I will be in contact with those people. But then as we have new things, I have some academic recognition things coming in. So as soon as determination is made here, I'll contact that vendor and give them the current or the new logo. So just as it comes and as we're spending the money on those things.
Others? I have one question. So I've not done the trademark process, but I have been party to many a naming process. Is there any impediment or risk that we wouldn't get a trademark on this? Trojan S seem very, very commonplace. I don't know what the details are that differentiate one trademark from the other, but is there a possibility that you can't get a trademark?
You're asking a lawyer a definite question.
Yeah, I am.
I think I'll give you a lawyer answer. There's always a possibility, but what we need to show is consistent use and the association of that use with that school. So I don't foresee a problem going forward. We did not have, after we had established all of those things with all the other school logos, for example, East is a Red Devil, and Red Devil is a pretty common thing. Probably the Preble Hornets was not a widely used logo or mascot, and the West Wildcats was probably pretty widely used, and we didn't have any issues with that.
And I would just add that I would say that I was probably seeing something more along this lines at Southwest than I have the logo that was adopted in early 2000. So that was prior to me. So I'm not sure what the, motivation or rationale was for making that change. But I would say that other than from a district level, no offense, I don't think at the school level it was widely adopted. And so
Gotcha.
I think like Melissa said, I think it'll be easier for us to actually get this.
Cool. Sorry. And that is one of the goals, is just that consistency across our organization so that it is recognizable for all of our students. So going forward, and even this year with the work with Lori, and she provided me a branding sheet for all of our clothing and stuff. Our coaches and our activities directors have been working hard to kind of stay consistent. So that's that continuous push. This will make it easier for them to be consistent, even when it comes to embroidery on a baseball hat. So.
All right. Other discussion? Okay. Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
And like that, Southwest has a new logo. Okay, we'll continue to 8B. Will someone please read the motion about posting of standards?
I can read that.
Okay,
That pursuant to Wisconsin statute section 120.12, do I read all the parentheses? 13B, the list and description of the 2025-26 student academic standards in the areas of mathematics, science, reading and writing, geography and history as presented, and with said academic standards constituting the board adopted standards that are required under Wisconsin statute section 118.301GA be approved.
Second.
we had a second by, I think, Alex. Discussion? Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Thank you. We'll move to 8C, Education Interpreter Compensation Structure. Before we read the motion, just want to make sure that everyone understands that these were all discussed at our working session. We're just taking action on items that board members have already been able to question and discuss. Someone please read the motion.
I move that that starting with the 2025-26 school year, the addition of a level 4. Wait, I skipped. Sorry.
You're good.
I am good. Scale 4 educational interpreters with 10 years of experience in the district and above as presented be approved.
Second.
Discussion. Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Thank you. We'll proceed to 8D, revisions to the district organizational chart. Will someone please read the motion?
I move that the organizational chart as presented be approved.
Have a second by Jeanette. Discussion? Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Great. We'll proceed to 8E, approval of long-term capital plan. Will someone please read the motion?
I move that the long-term capital plan as presented be approved.
Second.
Discussion. Laura?
I just want to say thanks for this document that shows the year by year expenditures or proposed expenditures. I don't know that I've seen it in this form before. No. So this is actually a really good visual of a very ambitious plan. And it shows a long-term commitment to, keeping our buildings well maintained, but also investing heavily in energy and sustainability. And as you guys all know, like that thrills me to my core. So I just wanted to say that. Thanks.
Other discussion? Alex?
And please correct me if I'm wrong, but I just want to make it known to the public that this is a fund that is only a handful of years old that was put together by the district that allows us to attend to capital infrastructure needs through smart investment with our funds.
Appreciate that. Laura?
And that it can't be used just for anything. It can only be used for these sorts of projects. So you can't pay down our debt, so to speak, our deficit with this.
Others? All right, Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Thank you. We'll go to 8F, the independent hearing officer resolution for expulsions. Andrew, will you please read the motion?
I'm gonna defer and I'll ask Samantha to read it.
Okay,
I move that the resolution for an authorization and appointment of an independent hearing officer as presented be approved.
Second,
thank you. I apologize, Sam. Discussion, Andrew?
I didn't make the motion because I'm going to vote no, but I want to explain my no vote first. There is nothing wrong with the quality of service of the proposed independent hearing examiners. And yes, it is difficult with the number of expulsions for the board to do it because I have lived in that system as well, and it can be difficult. It's, for me, I would have to philosophically be absolutely certain that we must give this up. And I'm just not quite at that absolute certainty. I realize it's a minority probably, but it's philosophical. It has nothing to do with the quality of the examiners or the administration's process in bringing this forward.
Others discussion? I would like to make a comment because I understand Andrew's position on this and it's valid. However, when I look at the services that are provided, there's an aspect of quality, but there's also an aspect of consistency. And for using the same firm the same resources year over year, it's not that the quality does not vary based on membership of the board, right? It is professionals that this is their the services that they render. They have a specific expertise in this that depending on the composition of the board, we do not have, right? So I understand that ultimately it is the board's responsibility. I think we're doing our students and our community a service by recognizing that there are those that have a particular competency that we as a board should leverage in this particular role. So yeah, that's what I say. Lynn.
I would just like to say, having been now through several expulsion hearings in my third year on the board, I find that the packet of materials I'm given is absolutely adequate for me to fully understand the situation. And then we always have our attorney at the table to answer questions for us and clarify things. I feel that it works very well. I feel it's a fair process and we make a decision based on a true understanding of the situation. So I have no qualms about it whatsoever.
Alex.
I appreciate all of your viewpoints. For all three of you have spoken, but similar to Andrew, I philosophically have a multitude of philosophies that ultimately I believe that this is something that should be solely or more so in the hands of the board, regardless of the other things that factor in, and that includes even if board members change. I think this is something that a certain sector of the community expects us to, and not that we don't, obviously we still have oversight of these things. But I think ultimately it's philosophically not something that I'm in favor of, because I think a lot of people want us to be more responsible for it, is maybe not the best way to put it, but ultimately they want us to have more hands-on and I don't know, maybe less outsourcing of something like this. You can call it accountability, if you will, even though that piece is still there. But that, along with other philosophical things, I'll be voting no.
Laura.
When I was first on the board, that's what we did. We did school board members. We'd have to have a quorum of board members who attended every single expulsion hearing. And with that and all the staff that are involved, which are quite a few, and all the various witnesses and principals and law enforcement and everything, it was not uncommon to have 20, 25 people in the room who were part of this process. So scheduling it was extremely hard. And often it was the same for school board members who could get away in the middle of the day, which is when these happened during the school day. And it became often just untenable. And so that's why I've always been actually grateful that we've gone this route. It works really well. In the end, the board does have oversight over the decision making, and we have good guidance from our legal department. And but the way we used to do it was really complicated, and I know I think this is a much better process.
Jeanette.
So I'm trained as a physical therapist. I'm not a teacher. I don't deal with disciplinary things other than when I had to discipline my children. Yes, I could learn the process. I could read the papers, but I would rather have someone who this is what they do for a living, because we come from different backgrounds. Several people here have been teachers or maybe are still in the teaching realm. But I feel that, as James said, the board makeup changes. Potentially every year it could change. And so consistency with what happens with one student in 2026, and then the board changes, and now maybe there's a different bend in 2027. I don't think it's fair to the students to have that inconsistency, as well as somebody who isn't really trained in this kind of process. So yes, I could learn it, but I feel that I would rather, just like I can learn how to fix the drain under my sink if it's clogged, I'd much rather call a plumber. And I think expulsion hearing is probably a lot harder than the drain under my sink.
Sam.
Having been on the educator side of these sorts of hearings and as a family advocate in these sorts of hearings, just, yeah, the time investment is huge. And I think we owe our families and our students the timeliness of holding those hearings in a reasonable timeframe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is something that we renew annually, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Looking at the slate of work ahead of us in the superintendent search, I would just be very concerned that even looking at the number of hearings, it seems to be going down, and that's great. And I think that's fantastic. But on the off chance that we would have a spike in those, having to balance the needs of being very present for our students and our families in these sorts of hearings, as well as running a superintendent search at the same time, I just worry that we would be spreading ourselves too thin.
Further discussion? All right, Kinsey.
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried. The results of the individual board member votes are as follows. Meister, yes. Cannell, yes. Minnow, no. Gerlach, yes. Lyerly, yes. McCoy, yes. Becker, no.
Thank you. And that brings us to the end of the agenda for the open session. We had an adjournment into closed session that we do not need any longer. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
You have been watching the Green Bay Area Public School District's Board of Education meeting. Please visit the school district's website, www.gbaps.org, for more information on the district and future meeting dates. If you cannot fully access the information on this video, please let us know the accessibility issue you are having by calling 920-448-2025 or by email at communications@gbaps.org. We will try to provide the information to you in an alternative format and/or make the necessary improvements to make the information accessible.